Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to our first show of. I don't need to see all of my medications here. I got a lot of them, but anyway, uh, welcome to our first show of 2023, and just gonna get a little laid back here, and we'll see who shows up tonight and who doesn't. But I am kind of interested in how uh, people um, okay, I was just checking to see who got links and who didn't. But anyway, going back to 2022, and we all knew that there was going to be a changing of the guard in the House of Representatives, and a lot of people were thinking, Joe Biden really hasn't done anything and hasn't accomplished that much other than showing people his incompetence. So I was looking at the craziness of uh, the election of the Speaker of the House, and I was thinking back to the events of 2022 and wondering what, if any, change is ahead for the black community. Now, it's interesting because I thought of this in a couple of ways. And it's because when I look at the particular groups that I belong to and participate in, let me take that back. The groups that I actively participate in, I notice that there is a radical change in the agenda. And it's based on, I guess the correct grammar would be that it's based upon finance and race. And I know Dr. Casey always accuses me of being a pessimist, which I do admit to. But once again, these seem to be the same problems that I incurred in my youth. So, let's talk about solutions. But I think in order for us to talk about solutions, this is truly a case where you have to take the existing structure down to the studs over with an open concept. Now, this open concept, to me, excuse me, let me adjust my hat here. Okay. I promise I'm going to get a set of wireless earphones. But anyway, this open concept calls for a clarity that is being suppressed even as we speak. When you look at the attacks on education in the state of Florida, where Governor DeSantis wants to start his book banning process even in the halls of higher learning, meaning the universities and colleges that are subject to Florida funds. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to conflict with those colleges that are also receiving federal funds. Or is this another one of those instances where DeSantis pokes out his chest, but knows sooner or later that he has to take a breath, just as he did with Disney? You know, very quietly under the table, Disney has not lost any of its tax grants and property values that were supposedly under attack by Santos. I think the possibility, especially of the industry moving and thousands of Floridians losing their employment or business due to Disney moving out overweight the madness that he was proposing. As you also notice, the demands that he made on the cruise ships and the cruise ship lines were also mysteriously kind of swept under the rug. So, if you're big business and you have that much of an impact on the state, DeSantis has found out that he is not such a bully, or he can't play the role of bully. So, therefore, we have seen some very distinct shall we say, inactions by the governor that he has chosen not to publicize like he has some of his other things. Another note, is the southern border. And because of my proximity to the border, excuse me, I'm about 12, 14 miles away from the border, I believe. And now they're going to reopen the walking bridge to Tijuana. So we're expecting more traffic between Tijuana and San Diego. Now, we don't have the expanse like Arizona or New Mexico or Texas, which has vast areas of open land, and of course the Rio Grande River that provides the border between Mexico and our southern border. But we do have something that I think is even more unique and as a way of being surreptitious and not leaving tracks. California has a coastline, an ocean, and we occasionally have a few boats or some human beings. I haven't heard of many people being, vast numbers of people being washed ashore, like they found in Texas, where they were bringing them through in tractor trailers, and I haven't really heard of any incidents like that here in California. Here in here in San Diego. So, given our southern border and our I guess western border, you can't put a fence on an ocean. So why aren't we getting these mass loads of migrants like they're getting in Florida and other regions, but mostly Florida. I would guess mostly Florida and well, Lower Florida. It's only 90 miles, so and all you have to do is touch American soil. But oddly enough, some of these restrictions are not only starting to apply to Haitians and people from the islands, but they are also, let's see, I believe it's Haitians, Jamaicans, and now they're starting to include Cubans in this restriction. So I'm not sure how people from Cuba come through as a threat to our southern So anyway, um, as I'm saying and ranting here, it would seem to me that this new Congress is also one that is not going to get a lot of things done for minority communities. Now, interestingly, and this just might be a ploy because this is something that they could actually probably keep in committee and use as a stalling tactic, or as if you're playing chess, they could use this as their king and protect it at all costs. And I'm talking about two proposals that they're saying that they want to address. Well, actually, it's three. Because number one is going to be to cut defense spending, which means attacking the military budget. Now, this used to be a stronghold for the far right, a strong military presence. In order to keep us isolated. Now, the left also wanted a strong military presence, but mostly as a means of control to show that we're the big kid on the block. Fear the wrath of the United States government. 9/11 put an end to that somewhat. So, we have military cuts on one side. Excuse me. The second thing, for those of you sports fans that are keeping up, it seems that Georgia is out 38-7 at halftime over TCU. So those of you that bet the house on TCU can start packing. But anyway, getting back to the political side of this new Congress. As I said, the first thing that they're talking about cutting is military spending. Now, according to Jim Jordan, this is to affect the officers and not the quote unquote enlisted or common soldier, because this, according to him, there's a high ratio of generals to enlisted personnel. Okay, so as I said, the far left and the far right have both used military might, just in different ways. So it's going to be interesting how we find a way to cut the budget, uh, the military spending in the budget. Um, of course, there will be an investigation into Hunter Biden's laptop. And an investigation into how he uses influence to acquire his wealth. Now, this is very interesting because has anyone in the Senate ever proposed to see how the gooseneck and his wife used their influence in order to acquire their wealth? As a matter of fact, I believe that during the pandemic, Lindsey Graham's wife, or some affiliate, were in an investigation concerning stock trading, using their information in order for them to buy or sell stock at a rate based upon insider information. So there are a lot of senators that I think should be under investigation as to how they acquired their wealth. Uh, Once we opened this Pandora's box of seeking how a president's son used his father's position in order for him to gain influence and acquire wealth. Because to me, this sounds like the same old story, just with a different name. I'm sure if we want to look back at investigations over the years, that we will find there was a certain amount of influence peddling involved in a lot of how did you get here type situations. And we all know that nepotism ran wild back when, the 70s, 80s. Come on, so I'm not sure if this is a Pandora's box that Jim Jordan and the guys want to open, but I'm sure we'll have it. And then if we're going to have that conversation, can we have a sincere investigation of Mr. Jim Jordan? Here's a man that stood silent while knowing that young men were being abused. And at the very least, was silent, was complicit in his silence, at the very least. But it seems that he's the tortoise in this case, where it all just bounces off his shell, and he's still able to slowly plod along with his agenda. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Talk about using his influence in order to enhance his position. There are a lot of Hunter Bidens in this particular administration. Yeah, I'm looking here on Clubhouse, and there is a room opening, and it's Malcolm X discussing Tupac's length, the brother Malcolm. Uh, so that I understand, between the national championship game and watching the madness unfolding in front of us for this new administration, depending upon whether or not you may be a Fox News watcher and are enthralled, of course, by what's going on with uh, Tucker. We're having Tucker and his counterpart, Geraldo. Uh, it always amuses me when I see Geraldo because I remember Geraldo's career before he started to be on Fox News. Geraldo always had some far right views from starting from his affiliation with the Angels in NYC, uh, and he sometimes seems to be the only one with a sense of logic on the panel, which is like I said, it seems kind of almost scary when you think that Geraldo is actually the smartest person in the room. But on the other hand, you look at Tucker and excuse me, you look at Tucker and you look at Hannity, and you know that these are not journalists. These are for all entertainment, purposes. This is a late night TV. Uh, 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 I guess for my generation, it would be Leno and Parr or something like that. But anyway, uh, getting back to the agenda of this current House, which, as I said, number one, is to uh, cut defense spending, and we will see whether or not that is uh, just something that they're proposing, or whether they are really true about that. Uh, it's kind of scary uh, because it would seem, as a veteran, we are under assault on two fronts. Um, Social Security, which most of us depend upon, and retirements and pensions for the career soldiers. And you're not going to tell me that if you're going to start at the top, that this is not going to, as they say, trickle down. But we'll see. Okay, so they're going after the military. The second thing is that they're proposing to cut aid to the Ukraine. Now, as a minority, as a member of the minority community, I could certainly say, hey, you know, let's do that, and that money that you were funding over there, uh, let's funnel into minority businesses, minority neighborhoods, and let's use that money effectively within our own country. Now, that's one hell of an idea. But you have forged allies within the European community for decades. To watch the increasing influence of terrorist groups, the aggressive testing of weapons by North Korea, the increasing use of surveillance and sabotage by the Chinese and Russians, the aggressiveness of Russia in obtaining more territory, how do you use that as being the leader of the free world? See, once again, that militarism thing, you know, the right would have us believe that they want to bring the military into a protective phase where it's used as our primary defense, which is what it's intended to be. But you have established yourself as the leader by using military strength and weaponry for so many years, how are you now going to backtrack that when the world is actually smaller because of such uses of technology? Okay, let's see. Dr. Casey says she has the wrong link. Let's see. Okay. Um, let's see. Maybe somebody else got the wrong link, but we'll see. Okay. Um, uh, me and okay. Let me go to StreamYard here. That's not about that. Okay. Excuse me 1 minute. Yeah, I'm trying to send the right link here. Um, okay. Let's do it from here. Let's do it from here. Uh, all right. Let's try that again. Okay. Um, okay. So I'm gonna just send a few people saying that they got the wrong link. So uh, let's get okay. Okay. So let's see who else might have went on the sports show. Uh, okay. All right. In the meantime, I'll go back on my rant. Um, uh, uh, Boy, as usual, I'm showing up late for my date, and there's Dr. Casey.
Well, you got to send out the right link. Can't nobody get on here and talk with you. They ain't got the right link. Did you send
Uh,
everybody the link?
yeah, I sent everyone the new link. I'm not sure how the sports link got up there, but hey, anyway, you know, it is what it is. But how are you, Dr. Casey? And welcome in a new year. And I see. Okay, I'm going totally incorrect here, but I see you are as beautiful as ever. So, how is
Thank you
everything?
so much. Everything is good. It is the start of a new year, so that means the start of a whole lot of new opportunities. And I'm excited to see how 2023 unfolds. It has started out very interesting. So I am eager to see what happens.
Yeah, you might be getting a new patient, sleep patient this year. After 25 years, I'm thinking I might try something different. Who knows?
What you gonna do different?
Maybe talk to you. We'll see.
I mean,
You
just let me know.
yeah, I mean, a different show, but I'm one of those guys that still sleeps, in 4 hour shifts.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying, So anyway, anyway, uh, but I thought there was some very interesting things that happened in the new year. Um, and I'm going to start with the happenings in what we saw in the house. Miss Sims is here, so I see she got the right link.
See?
Let's see. Good evening, Miss Sims. How are you?
Greetings all, greetings all. I'm here.
Okay, and as I would be very remiss not to mention that it's very good seeing you this year. I know you had some problems right around the end of the year, so I hope you're doing much better.
Right, I am. Thank you. Thank you.
So I was
Glad
just
to see you,
getting
Miss Sims. How you doing?
so I was just getting ready to kind of lay the foundation for talking about what we saw going on in the house with the different, the changing of the guard, and it seems that it wasn't as smooth as it has been in other years, but a lot of people were calling for a change, and it was evident by the vote. Now, they didn't want a big change. It wasn't a big red wave like everyone was expecting. But, there was a little food coloring put in the water. Now the water is a little murkier. So it was kind of interesting to me, especially after going through the Herschel Walker thing, that the first alternative candidate that they actually brought out was Byron, a black guy from Florida. Now, we have all been, like, and I've been a very staunch, guy that, usually when I see people of my color that are conservatives, there's an automatic red flag. Now, uh, I don't know how many of you, how much you know about Mr. Donald's background, but and how he got to be the representative from the state of Florida. But it 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 almost seemed to me like it was the Herschel Walker thing all over. As long as he was the right hue, then we're showing that we are not racist. We're showing that we are, we're open minded, and it's all right, for us to propose a minority for Speaker of the House. Do you think that he was a genuine candidate, or was he another Herschel Walker?
Well, I'll go first. I with the topics, I went back through C-SPAN and kind of looked at what was going on. I didn't see how he was elected, but It always goes back to the three things: strategy, power, control. Now, when your strategy doesn't work, you try another one. I think what you're seeing now that's going on play out. And I think as they were doing the votings and things like that, they were putting anybody up to kind of hold space or who they thought would get through. And uh, it's going to be interesting, this Congress, because it is a changing of the guard and the changing of a strategy. I think that's why you were having and seeing so much infighting and struggles and whatever.
I agree. I'm kind of just eager to again when you talk about everything that has gone on in politics in the last 2 years, um, the mind state of Biden even and his kind of clumsiness um in his time in office. It is interesting to see how everything plays out because we are literally seeing a change happen that nobody kind of expected. Well, a lot of people didn't expect it. They're so used to things going the way it's always went that now that there is a difference in how things are going, it is causing an uproar. But a lot of times, I've said this several times, in order to really see change, things kind of got to go away. It kind of got to be disrupted in order for change to really have the opportunity to occur. And I think that that's what we're witnessing, like in real time.
Now, my my second question.
First, James, how was he elected? And you compared it to the Herschel Walker thing, but and that made me wonder. Two different people, two different backgrounds, and whatever. How
Well,
was he elected?
he was a minority candidate. And that was his change. Was that not only it was kind of if you want to go back to the strategy, am I black enough for you?
Mm. And he is from Florida, correct?
Right,
Northern
right,
Florida. Okay,
right,
got it. Okay.
right. And rather than he was more or less the alternative to the LGBTQ
Mm.
candidate or uh, the candidate on the
That
left.
they thought they could win with. It
Right,
sounds like. Okay,
right,
gotcha,
right.
gotcha.
Um, but going back to the strategy before I get to the black community, and Dr. Casey, this might be something that you might want to start off with because according to the now uh, right, one of the first things that they want to cut is military spending. And according to them, this is going to start at the general officer level, which,
That wouldn't be a bad thing because the military spending is the most outrageous spending because we're doing crap we don't need to be doing. We be everywhere in everybody business instead of dang going fixing and working on what we got going on our own soil.
okay, see, now that brings me to the two different uses of the military by the right and the left. Under the left, we have expansion or through the use of military power. In other words, we bully the little states and you know uh, do whatever's necessary. In other words, uh, we can go back to the crack epidemic and what happened in Central America and the part that the CIA played in bringing crack into LA. Or we can go to what the right proposes is that the military is used for protection and not as a weapon as long as we are protected. But in today's modern age, with the use of technology, is that feasible, Dr. Casey?
Repeat the question again, because the way you said it, I didn't hear.
Okay. With the modern, with the way that modern technology is today,
Mhm.
and we're talking about being under attack, whether it be by the internet, energy, what like we saw in Texas, or whatever. Is it feasible, or is it really possible to cut down on military spending and still protect our
That
country?
doesn't take military spending to do digital and the information security. That doesn't take military analysts to do that. They can hire somebody, they can hire a contract worker that can go in and do a lot, like some of these hackers that they're catching, those type of people that they need to target to get in to make sure that they take preventative measures, because those are the people that know what's going on in the system. But the military spending part is not being used for that.
Your thoughts on that, Miss Sims?
Well, not being a veteran or a person that's ever gone in the service, one of the things that I think of, and especially as you all are talking in the example you gave, James, it didn't miss anything about the type of people who will be going into the military. And I think one of the things that's happening nowadays in terms of military spending is eventually the way things are going, you're gonna have to, and the it seems to be less people are going along the voluntary track of joining the military. I think eventually you're gonna have to go back to no voluntary. You're gonna have to go back to actually the I forget what it was called before the
The
voluntary,
draft.
the drafts and things like that. All right, then.
I don't think
First of all, I'm thinking how are cutting certain services and medical coverages, et cetera, et cetera. Your personnel and the people that's willing to go on the battlefield and be killed, it seems like that's good. That's your biggest asset in regards to the military. How are you taking care of them first in regards to not only them making sure they have the best of the best, and also taking care of them personally and their families and those loved ones that they love and care about. Also, when you speak of military spending, my mind also goes to that the military is also, various militaries are kind of in a competitive state in regards to, you would not I would not want to uh, be lacking in the supplies, guns, the latest and the greatest of what my enemy might have. So I'm thinking of that also. To me, when you say military spending, and as I say, I don't have an inside track like the two of you may have in terms of military spending, what's needed, and what you may have visibly seen with your own eyes that could be changed and done in a better and different way. But before you go, for me, and I to me, the military, somebody who was willing to go into the military and possibly a high possibility of losing their life to protect my butt and everybody else's butt that's back here. I don't want any shortages anywhere along the way, while at the same time using wisdom and good judgment, not only with how you prepare the military, but also the spending.
I'm not against the draft. I think that the draft is was a good thing when it comes to teaching people structure, standards, honor, integrity, things like that that is supposed to be in the street but you don't really see in the street, but it's a lot of, especially nowadays, the generations that we see now, the younger generations, younger than me, they don't have a lot of guidance, but the people that were older than me, that draft is what helped structure their mentality to be workers and all the things that I admire about the older generations.
Dr. Casey just brought up a point that is in comparison to the political aspect in terms of a change of people, a change of generations in regards to this younger generation, their mindset, where they're coming from, etc., etc. That plays into it also. I, and I think that may be one of the reasons why you may be um, that that voluntary thing may be going out of the door because they see how their relatives, their loved ones, and when they're cutting back at possibly medical services, how long it takes to do stuff, etc., etc., etc. That doesn't fit into this now generation, I think, type of people in regards is it's just different in regards to the generations and what they've gone through and experienced and how they were taught versus James. James first, and then you later. You two different generations here, James and you, and so they better get the act together in regards to. I don't think it's too far down the line if they don't get their act together in regards to military and personnel and people.
Now, my second part of this is that they also say that they want to cut the amount of money that we're spending in the Ukraine. Now, as you know, black man and just a citizen of the United States, I'm saying, hooray, maybe we can bring some of that money back home, and do something with it in the neighborhood. Maybe we can start some program, But is this for real? Do and I'm going to be kind of blunt here. Do white people really want to stop protecting white people in order to put money into the black community? Or do you think that this is just somewhat of a starting point like Mr. Donald? We'll propose it and it sounds good, but we'll still find a way to get some money over here and it goes back to the military spending because we're giving these people millions of dollars in military technology. I mean, when you talk about Patriot missile systems, you're not talking
Billions?
about just,
You mean
just,
billions?
so do do you think that this is something that, they're just proposing and using as a bargaining chip, or do you think this is for real?
Dr. Casey.
They didn't send billions over there to Ukraine. I don't you never know because as you were talking, I was just thinking like the whole Trump um debacle, that almost seemed like the with the way the government is run financially and otherwise, it's almost like somebody is trying to manipulate the system and break it down so that it can be restructured because there's some things that's going on now that it almost have to be planned in order for it to be this destructive.
I never would have, James, the way you this described the last statement and the thought you put out there. I never would have put it put it in those terms or even
Okay,
the last
okay.
thing.
I'll make it politically correct for you then.
No,
Okay.
I'm gonna go with what you said because I don't see the lessening of money being spent in Ukraine. Thinking of people's behavior, you never do something that's not going to be a benefit, usually to you or what you care about. And so, here again, I I can't speak too much on it because I would need to actually look and go and do research to see what's actually going on or not going on with the money going to the Ukraine in regards to it being or not being a savings to the United States monetarily.
Um,
Because in some of the things that I have read, a little read or and heard, the the United States doesn't seem to be financially spending as much as they would have in past years in on a country that's now in the Ukraine situation. It seems like other countries are stepping more up to the plate in regards to the finances of aiding financial aiding of the Ukraine. And I may be wrong. It's just the impression that I get as I listen to various things.
well, as I said, let me kind of put it politically correct for you. When you look at the money that our allies, meaning Britain, France, Germany, uh, Italy, uh, you notice I'm using all European countries here, members of NATO mostly.
Hmm.
We have given almost 3 times the amount of money and aid to Ukraine than those people. But as I said, using the military as that, we are the mightiest nation in the world, can we abandon our allies and actually concentrate on domestic spending?
Well, number one, I would question if we still are the mightiest country in the world in regards how we used to think of ourselves during past generations. And the countries that you named, like I said before, uh, people do things for their own self-interest. And one of the things that, as you were naming off those countries, I thought of the location. It behooves them greatly to financially support Ukraine because they're in a closer proximity to Ukraine in regards to various things can come out of the woodwork or unexpected things that would impact their countries and their citizens versus we're a longer distance away. Um, so I really had to put some thought into that.
Okay. So let's talk about Mr. Santos. Uh, uh, Hopefully, well, for our listeners, Santos is a elected representative. He's elected to the House of Representatives from New York. He flipped a former Democratic seat, and so now he is a freshman congressman. But it seems that um, he embellished his resume. If you're black, that means he lied on his resume. So
Which resume to the military, to
no,
college,
no,
or whatever.
no. Uh,
I mean, to the
every,
Congress.
everything from
Okay.
his job experience to his education, to his finances. He said,
I wonder who you were speaking of when you you were talking about the embellishment. Who are you specifically speaking
yeah,
about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So he was sworn in as a legislature, as a representative. He was sworn in this morning. In the meantime, he's under investigation. I believe he donated a little over $750,000 to his campaign. And 3 years ago, the man was making less than $50,000. Now, in if if you were in the hood, you would probably be under investigation for RICO, wondering how you surmassed this amount of money so quickly. But it seems that he put all this on his resume, and all of it turned out to be an embellishment. But he said, hey, everybody lies on their resume. So, what do you think about a congressman, a man that pledged to have certain principles and whatnot, basically lied not only to the public but to his constituents, but yet and still he's allowed to take a seat in Congress? What do you? I mean, under ordinary conditions, and I know if he was working at Ralph's or Kroger's out here in California and he told a lie on his resume, he'd be in the unemployment line. But yet and still, this man, like I said, he was sworn in today and he has admitted to lying. So, you know, when you look back at some of the congressmen that have been kicked out for various, offenses, like Franken, some others, uh, what do you think about uh, them allowing this man to be sworn in?
In those seats like that, they do lie a lot. That's what we think of politicians. That is exactly what we expect from them is to lie and then embellish and to, kind of manipulate their way into the places that they want to be. That's the mindset that is seen about political figures, anyways. So I am not really shocked. It is more so if the constituents will hold him to a standard or not. It's less about the other people in politics because they're not going to do anything. Clearly, they are, going to overlook it because it's the good old boys game. But the people have to speak up in order for it to be addressed. Because if the people let it pass, then who else is going to say something? The government will never check itself.
I think literally, as a people, as a humanity or humanism, we're going through a moment in time in a lot of things changing, being questioned. What generation is he age wise? Is he more
He's
Dr.
closer.
Casey's age?
Yeah, he's closer to Dr. Casey's age. I believe.
Okay. And due to what I just said, a lot of things that are going on just as us as a society, the contents of a person's character seems to have gone down in regards to people accepting the negative, the wrong things that they have done, which also plays into power and control. But to me personally, he's a I see him being a danger because of the things that he's done. It's like how Angelo says, when a person tells you who they are, believe them the first time. So sometimes you find out people can talk to you in various ways. Uh, by your mouth, by your actions, etc., etc. Now, his actions say to me that he has no fear of not doing something that others may not think well of. He has no fear of doing embellishment because number one, he may know that there are people that are going to support him because they want the power control like he does. And that even reminds me of the character and content of Donald Trump. Look how far he has gone. And he's even been going through the courts, etc., etc. now, but he hasn't stopped one iota of saying, okay, I'm gonna lay low. And then maybe I'll take off and go to one of my islands somewhere so they can't find me. But no, he's out front still saying that he wants to be president and he's going to run, etc., etc. So to me personally, a person that's done the things that you have described that Mr. Santos has done, to me, that's a danger. And personally, I would have to keep my eye on him and keep watching him because he's told me the content of his character. So that means if you're thinking about not only yourself but others and that you love and care about and things that can go wrong as society in general, he will be the one of the ones that would kind of stimulate, kind of agitate things going wrong. So I would always uh, be on the lookout for him because he's told me who he is. And if I don't listen to that, to what he is, and use my wisdom and good judgment, then I'm one of the ones that's willing to accept the lowering of the contents of his character and I'm willing to let him do what he wants to do to not only to me but to others and to Miss Dr. Casey's kids as they grow up and set crazy stuff in motion. So yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on him. I'm gonna keep my eye on him. Thanks for letting me know.
Now, the Republicans have taken over the House by a very slim margin. So it's not like that they're in an abundant majority, but uh, one of the things that we talked about on this program uh, is change and looking forward. And one of my resolutions is, I was listening to what Dr. Casey was saying, so I'm going to try, and in honor of Miss Sims, uh, I have got a much rosier tint to my glasses this year. So, so I'm going to try to have a much better perspective on the coming year and try not to be so hard on past generations, especially mine. So, with that in mind, Dr. Casey, what do you propose that we as a community do in approaching these next 2 years, knowing that we have an election coming up? At the present time, we have no viable candidates within our community unless you consider Kamala Harris. But we're also, we have Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority speaker of the House, and kind of sitting in the background from the last election and uh, cycle is Cory Booker. So, do you think that these two young men are going to be the next viable candidates for the black community, or do you see someone else possibly taking the helm? This was one of the I think positions that Stacey Abrams thought that she was capable of taking, but I see the smirk already there, Dr. Casey. But anyway, but but anyway, do you see any other viable candidates once you take out Stacey Abrams, uh, Kamala Harris, and maybe some of the older members of uh, the Black Caucus? What do you
I
think is
mean, you know, when you remove President Harris and the ideal of Stacey Abrams, um, you can't. Right now, we're in a position where you can't really tell what's going to happen next. There is no um, planned out agenda that I can see going on because everybody is up in the air. Everybody is having their hopes on the way things were ran, and nobody is really planning for how things need to go. As a country, and it starts with our leadership. We are very reactive instead of proactive. So nobody really has a way to strategize correctly for the long term. A lot of strategies are based on past methods, past things that might have worked at some point, but nobody is structuring things to really take the future to the next level. Now, of course, on the technology end and all of those other areas, yes. But when it comes to politics, we're at a holding place and pattern where we have been. Let's say that we are coming out of that now, and what's going on that we are seeing and we're talking about.
now,
All the all
when you say we, do you mean we as a community, or do you say we as a
as a
democratic?
country,
Okay,
like when it comes to the Democrats, I'm not a Democrat. I don't like I don't identify with being a Christian. I won't identify with being a Democrat because I
okay.
just feel like as a political party, Democrats are have always just spun their wheels, and they spin the black community a lot without really giving us anything that is of substance enough for us to really turn around and become a better community. I think that a lot of things that are done when it comes to the Democratic Party is kind of like, we're going to do enough to hush them up. And then, but it's going to really, it always ends up putting us in a bind. Like when you think about right now, the way the cost of living has increased. And just all of that, that is because of all the stimulus, which that was Trump's stimulus, but the Democrats was really pushing for certain aspects of things that also played into that. I believe that we're in a position as a community to where we need to um, continue to raise up people. We can let the people that's in there right now do whatever they're going to do. We still need to be in a place to raise up people so that we can have more people that are I want to say like-minded or have common interests, because a lot of people that are playing politics now, even if they are black, they just going along to get along because it's only so much that they can do with one or two. I mean, they can do some stuff, but they're not making enough. They don't have enough noise, enough volume to make the noise to make the change like that on their level. So as a community, we have to continue to push people into positions, not push people, encourage people. We got enough basketball players, enough football players. We got enough, we need people to expand their palette when it comes to careers and what they want to do when they grow up. But in order for that to happen, we actually have to make it look appealing to the younger generation also, because right now it's a shit show.
Miss Sims,
Yes.
your thoughts?
Well, I'm speaking to both of you, but specifically to you, Janice, because you said you're going next 2 years, you're not going to be so hard on the face. But I one of the things not only you, but I continue to do, and our generation and others who know the value and how key voting is, to go back and remind people, and maybe this may be or expand people's knowledge on the system that the United States is built on in terms of the politics in voting, what a republic is, what a monarchy is, different countries. If you have to go back that far to explain it and explain how we fit into voting fits into our country and the way we choose people, explain, go back and even explain, kind of do a one-on-one, explain the three branches of government, how they work together, how when you elect a president, the part that they play, the Supreme Court, etc., etc. Me, I already got a plan, a strategy of what I plan to do, but I specifically waited until all the elections in this area have run their course and stuff. I think the League of Women Voters should should are is available to go to communities to kind of explain and help them understand better what's going on. That's a way, another way of helping uh, raise people's consciousness of voting, because like I said, it's a moment in time in regards to what this country's going through, not only as humanly and environmental justice, but also politically. And so, like one a person in December or whatever emailed me, and he wondered if said he ran again. He ran for the city council last term and didn't make it, but he asked me if he ran again for the city council, would I vote for him? And I said, if you didn't, and I listed some things that I thought would is it not I thought, but it's key in this community. If you didn't emphasize these and stuff, no, I wouldn't vote for you. And then he said, I asked him, one of the things was the light rail system, et cetera, et cetera. And the comment that he made in regards to that um, let me know that he said something. Well, he could speak to that, but the community needed to be involved, and that said to me and reiterated what I felt all along, that a lot of the politicians that run for office aren't up to date with some of the things that are going on. Because I'm from the community and I know that certain a small amount of community organizations have been out there for since 2010 in regard to staying involved with this particular thing. And so one of the things that I plan to, expand on more what he asked me, but also I plan to let politicians know that if you don't put up, when you're making up your coming to the community and printing up all your pretty literature and stuff, if you don't put on there, and there's room to do it, how and who can vote during this elections, going beyond being a citizen, et cetera, et cetera, telling people that they can help with interpretation, telling people that if you live under a bridge, you can vote. And I said this before to two of the two persons that were in elections, but they ignored it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they lost or the vote count was so low. Telling them, if you don't put that sort of information, give that information to people to make them more aware of, because a lot of people, even ex-felons, think they can't, if they're off papers, they can vote. But if you don't put these important issues out, not issues, but facts out there, when you pass out your literature, number one, I wish you wouldn't send it illegitimately to me. Then if it comes to me, I'm going to toss it in the trash. I'm not going
Yeah,
to read it because
most
I
of the
mean,
time.
because that's important. That's here again. That's an opportunity to make people more aware, to give them something to put to remind them that they have power. We're not. I don't believe in empowering people because people already have the power. Sometimes they just need to be reminded of let know where the power that they have is and how they can use it. And James, I don't think I shared it with you before, but in the past I have run. I run for the city, not for the school board. And somebody that was already on the school board asked me to run, and it set up even a treasurer and stuff. And my children were younger then. And I said, okay, what I didn't have a lot of time to devote to it, etc. But I voted and I got past the primaries. And then when it came to endorsement, and I remember at the big endorsement thing, they asked me if you lose uh, this vote and stuff, will you still endorse the party or the candidate that we put out there? And I said no, and I knew that it would rub against and it might not go anywhere. I said no because some of the people I may represent will never come to these political conventions, etc., and things like that. And I didn't go any further. But one of my friends told me that that was a defining moment to them when I said no, I wouldn't automatically support their whoever they put forth there. But I did learn a lot of things in terms of the game of the politics. If you wear a certain little emblem, that's a signal to people and stuff behind the scenes stuff. So this is the
if
politics.
if
It's
you
not a
hold
game.
your hands a certain way,
Mhm.
if you mention certain phrases such
Yeah.
as "I'm a traveling man," yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things, and of course, uh, referring back to In Living Color, I have to refer a lot of these things back to my penitentiary education because I had time to sit down and observe and read, and I wasn't so caught up on what the hell I was doing, hustling out in the street. But as you said, a lot of people don't notice these things, and when you have the time, you do things that you think may be entertaining, but are they constructive? But anyway, that's enough about me.
Well, one other thing that I would say in terms of when I was more active with the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis League of Women Voters, one and this was like 2018. No, the first year that Obama ran. Um, the league here did something that they had learned that another league in Nevada, someplace was doing, and that was setting up and educating K through pre about voting. And we actually went about and some of the teachers had various put into their curriculum certain things about voting. And we even back then we had the money to actually do a sample ballot for it didn't include everybody, but for the high school down to the preschoolers in regards to voting and candidates and who was out there. They loved it. And we even got the election judges to actually when and also was it we did this to encourage parents to go vote, to take their children to the polls. And we thought that would be a stimulus for them in terms of teaching their children. And so we actually had, when parents actually went to the polls, to the side, there was an area for the children to actually put in their votes and things along those lines. During the summer, in terms of when I would be asked to go to various community events, like the fairs and stuff like that. I actually took a voting booth with me that they folded up in the counter and took with me to wherever I went because I wanted people that can. I know a lot of people would that will. That's to me that's like going to the people where they were, and I set it up, and I wanted them to become more familiar with, you know, the booth, and when you after you fill out your card to stick it in the counter and things like that. I did it all summer long. I went to schools and things. Here again, I saw the value in getting children out there to encourage people, the parents to vote, et cetera, et cetera. And it worked in regard to that, that particular year. And I can remember after the voting day was over, I was one of the ones that actually went over to where they took the machines and whatever and start counting them to actually count the votes. The League of Women were responsible for counting the students. The students had voted because the next day, just like the adult votes would be out there on the computer and things, their votes would be too. So we were sitting there counting votes. And we didn't discount anyone. We had people all over.
Miss Sims, see, you've already made me break my promise because I'm gonna go real pessimistic on you right about now. See, because I remember when I was young, and as I told you, my aunt and various women in my family were a part of politics in Youngstown. My aunt was one of those ones that went around and, back then they were called elders.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped organize some of these things. And we actually had women within the neighborhood that went around and, when you got ready to vote, they would come and either, take care of your kids, as you said, and make sure that the neighborhood was educated about their vote. Now, this was back then, and one of the things that you mentioned was the funding. Well, in the neighborhood, there was no funding.
Right.
So what happened to you and that League of Women Voters between 1972 and 2000 and when Obama, because I noticed a lot of black people went back to politics when Obama all of a sudden was involved.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, we had a damn hands in the pockets and didn't do a damn thing. So where were you in those other 50 years?
Well, let me finish up what I was saying. The League of Women Voters didn't have any money. That's why we couldn't continue that.
You didn't have no money in 1968 either. You did it because you were a part of the community. You didn't go looking for funding. You did it because it bettered your community. Now all of a sudden, if there's no money involved, there's no action involved.
Right, and that's a real deterioration on where we are now. I personally, and people that were working with me, we stayed out there. The people were still of a single mind of voting for presidents and just voting on that one election day was how they understood voting to mean and the significance of that. All that I did personally and the league did and whatever, it did not where we I think failed. We did not draw in the mass of people that we wanted to continue out there and doing what we were doing and see the masses. We didn't, and one of the reasons was we didn't have the money, but we weren't successful in continuing to reach people to stay out there. And as I said before, I think that's one of the reasons why Obama didn't get a lot of things through or done that we thought he would, because people voted for him and left him out there on his own and went back, didn't keep up with, what he was doing, who was blocking his way. We didn't cover for him and the parties and things that they were trying to do. People, I think the majority of people voted on election day like we knew was valuable for that day, but then didn't understand that we needed to stay out there with him and the party and Congress and keep track of, you know, if things weren't going through, to stay out there and have a voice in it. Just like with this new, it could happen again right now with the people that we have elected, especially in the Senate. It could happen again if we don't
You mean
stay
in the House?
engaged.
You
And the
mean,
House and Senate, and House and Senate.
yeah, well, I guess so when you consider Sinista and Mansion, and there's another lady that, but anyway, your thoughts, Dr. Casey. By the way, Happy New Year, dear brother Williams. How are you this evening? You came in on there just when I got a little heated there with Miss Sims, but how's your New Year been, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Do you want to chime in on that before I go to Dr. Casey?
Now going. Oh, she's saying yes. Well, I add my little perspective, and 'cause I didn't really hear the full conversation. But what I will say on what I did hear is that when Sims talked about people voted and then kind of went back to sleep. I think that just goes right back to what I say a lot in regards to us understanding what it
Right.
means to be involved in the political process.
Mm-hmm.
To most black folks, what that simply means is to vote. And they think that they've done their due diligence
Right.
once they voted, as opposed to recognizing that we have to hold our elected officials accountable. So voting means you put somebody in office, but holding them accountable is the entire process and making sure that they do what they say they're gonna do. Make sure you know who you voted for. Make sure you are involved in the entire process of them being in a position.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you go out and um, make appointments and even sit down with your elected officials from time to time and give them your take on things and make sure your voice, the community has a actual voice, so that the politicians know that they're being monitored, know that they're being held accountable, and know that they got support, or we come out against them if necessary. But as long as we simply have the mentality to where once we voted for somebody because they're black,
Yeah.
and we feel like is that it's in itself is going to hold them accountable, and that just because I'm black, meaning I'm gonna have the other black people's best interests in heart. If we keep having that narrow, which I would call backwards perspective view on things, then we will continue to see um, our ability to deal with self-sufficiency erode, as well as us as black people constantly at remain and stay at the bottom. And I think one of the things that that you recognize from y'all's generations, Dr. Sims and and James, is the fact that because of segregation, you had to be more active, involved in your community. You had to be more concerned about the political process, because you lived in a time where the political process is what kept our people
Yeah.
in recognized bondage. And there was, like, especially when you talk about Jim Crow and you talk about laws that were enacted to basically create racism, blatant racism, as opposed to things that they do now to where it ends up affecting us across the board, but it ain't spelled out like it was back then. Colors can't sit in the front of the bus. The language that they use, and you can't look a white person in the face. All kinds of crazy stuff that they did back then.
Right
So
to the
our people,
sideball.
yeah, so our people had to be politically conscious because your life was at stake. Well, we feel like as time moved on and we gained more or less what I would call individual rights, as people, then people went to sleep and people started feeling like, through what I refer to as assimilation, that they had now the right or should I say the privileges to be able to be ignorant of the
Mm.
political process. And that privilege of being able to be ignorant is kicking us in our ass right about now. And it ain't until after the fact, from a reactionary position, that we decide we want to be involved. And once you do that from a reactionary position, now you're trying to play hurry up and catch up
That's right.
in
That's
terms of
right.
what's going on. And it's very daunting, and there's a lot to learn
Yeah.
if you in your late 20s, 30s, and 40s now wanting to actively be involved in a political process, because now you see that something needs to be done. Now you see that the quote unquote insurrection is really a stomping call for racism. When you see what's going on, and what happened, when we see what happened with the whole thing with the Speaker of the House being held up and that not happening since the Civil War era, now you get to realize that, oh shoot, things are bad and we
Yeah.
do need to do something about it. Well, I mean, hell, you in the last ending, and now all of a sudden you want to be politicized and woke up. I mean, that's where we find ourselves.
I wonder if you'd further comment on Byron, because I thought I thought it was kind of when you go back through his background, election deniability, the whole 9 yards, and I kind of thought of the Herschel Walker campaign when they pushed him out there as a candidate against McCarthy. What were your thoughts? The only thing I thought was missing was can't we all get along?
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel the same way you do with that, and I feel like the whole point of that is really was, to me, more or less just a taunt. I don't think it was legitimate. I think it was more or less being able to try to muddy the waters in terms of the quote unquote black person that should be so quote unquote involved as a speaker. It's just to be able to say, hey, you think Jeffries? Hey, what about Byron? So it's like, hey,
Throwing names out
can,
there.
yeah, just can we decide which Negro that that we think is best
It
suited for the
almost
job?
slipped out there. Go ahead.
So that's unfortunate. I feel like that was more or less the case. I don't see that going in beyond that. It was just to delay the process and stir trouble.
But it did get him a seat on the so-called steering committee.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Dr. Casey, you've been quiet up there for a little while, so
Well, because I don't want to get in the middle of you and Miss Sims beef. Uh, so that's why I wanted him to go and break up the monotony of it all, because
Come on, James. I'm ready for you. Come on.
it has kind of got a little heated in there for a second there. But again, we kind of
well,
keep
I
reiterating.
blame a lot of mistakes on my generation, and I think we went to sleep. So
Well, no, I was going to say we have reiterated some of the same points. When I think about what we've talked about as far as voting, getting people more educated and in a position to run for office and to have a better understanding, as well as um being so reactionary instead of being progressive and planning more about what we want to do, because even if we get people in office, if there's no plan, then we just got people in office, and it'd be like for nothing, almost. So we have to do better about figuring out what the plan is going to be and appointing people. I think that there should be some type of caucus or committee that is not already in position. Some of younger people, some of people that are more forward thinking. And it's nothing wrong with where the older generation came from, or the way that they've done things because of where they came from and the things that they had to kind of do. It was no getting around the options that they had, like Mr. Williams said. But now what are we gonna do with it? Now, because again, it's a slow process, but a lot of the older politicians are beginning to wither away, and somebody has to take those positions. What happens next? But if nobody is prepared for that, then we're going to end up in a position to where what we've seen in Congress, and the inability to elect someone, that's just the tip of the iceberg for real.
Yeah.
That's not even, we haven't even really seen the ruckus that is going to come because everybody is divided. And they're more divided now as Republicans, especially since the Trump debacle, because you got some people that want to support him, some people that don't want to support him. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about the whole democratic process here. This is not just Democrats versus Republicans. This is, they're jeopardizing the way things have been when it comes to the elections. So what do we do to secure that? Because it again, it feels like the same way I said that they was just throwing names out there in the pot. Everything feels like they're just, it's an experiment. They're just kind of seeing what's gonna work, what's gonna fly, and what's not gonna fly. And depending on the temperature of the people, determines which direction they're gonna go. Because if we let them go ahead and do whatever, especially right now where we have a cancel culture where they're calling people out on stuff, if we let them do whatever in politics, then they'll continue to do whatever. But now they're in a place to where they got to do a little bit more because the way social media and the internet has put a spotlight on everyone, it is changing the dynamics of what politicians can get away with.
And desperate people do desperate things, as evidence with the
Mhm.
House Speaker of the House thing in regards to the ballots, the number of ballots, etc., etc. And as the Congress ages, also James, there's less and less people of me and James's generation because we're dying out the cycle of life. So there's less of us out there to others to help me and James with our work as we go forward. And part of I think the teaching element of this is to let people, some of the strategy of the less people that vote goes in favor of the candidates that are out there. That means less work they have to do to go and be accountable and talk to people and things along those lines. The people that are still out there and hang with politics, they become very, very astute. An example of when I was more active, like I said, with the league, one of the things that I also did was moderate some of these debates. And I remember one of the debates of this, it was the first black female mayor here, and she was running for a second or third term. And when I got to the place I was to moderate, it told me that someone had climbed a tree outside, and the police had to be called to get him down. And then I remember in one during a break in a moderation, somebody from the audience came up to me and said that I was being biased when I spoke and gave the contestants, not contestants, but the person's questions that I into my voice intonated differently when I spoke to one person versus another. So people that are hanging, that I said, that are still out there, they become very astute in regard to what's going on and what buttons to push and where to go to find certain people to help push these buttons and move people along that shouldn't be moved along, like Trump. The end. Can't hear you, James.
You muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So
I was gonna say, I thought you were speechless.
not quite. Almost, not quite. But anyway, one of the things that Trump spoke of was forming a third party. And you were talking about how you don't really affiliate yourself as a Democrat. And I call myself an independent, but I do find that most of the candidates that I vote for are Democratic. But the point being, if Donald Trump splits the Republican Party and we're stuck with another 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, what effect do you think that will have? Do you think that will have more of an adverse effect? Because now you have a split among the Republican Party. So, like I said, you almost have a shoe-in for the reelection of the present administration. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think they're gonna get reelected. Just say no to Joe.
What's your thoughts? When you think of that politically, Brother Williams, I mentioned, Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker a little earlier. Who might be viable candidates, but if there's a split among uh, the Republican Party, uh, for the Democrats, it's a matter of if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it.
Yeah, well, I think you just ended where I'm gonna start. I don't think it's realistic to think Joe would stay alive another 4 years competently enough to be in office. And I don't think a
Come
damn
on now, I
person
ain't too far
on this.
behind Joe, man. Good to
It,
Joe.
it ain't the
Well,
age. It's not the age,
how
Joe.
many times have we had to clap and say, "Come back and sit down, James. Don't walk off the desk, James. It's a wall
Billy
behind you,
Man,
James."
Hey, hey, Mr. Williams, they missed earlier. I said President Harris, but they missed that.
No, I didn't. I didn't miss it, but to me it was like Governor Abrams, so I kind of let it go.
Well, see that, but that's part of what I'm getting at. I don't think he'll be alive, can stay alive 4 years to run, as well as I don't think nobody wants uh Harris to by default end up being the president because he done fell off stage and she couldn't catch him. So I don't. I think it's enough people out there that's gonna make sure that ain't gonna be what's gonna run.
Yeah,
But
he is
the pro-
definitely not fit.
but the problem is, I honestly don't think I can't give you an answer as to what two people would run on the ticket and have a powerful chance.
I
So
think,
I don't know.
and I think that the Republicans, I don't see them ever willingly let that their parties to be split, because it really weakens them as a party. We always have third parties that's been out there for years and years and years. It's just enough people have not voted, whether it's Green Party, Independent Party, etc., etc. It's very hard to do. It's not saying that it can't be done. Within these next 2 years, James, we should also be sending out an official search party looking for new people for Dr. Casey. to get these old ones out. But to me, the older generation is still in there. If you're on top of your game and you know what to look for in people, listening to people and what they're saying, their actions, and you know the name of the game, you know how to play the game, you know who the players are and how to play the game, you can stay in as long as you remain, you don't go senile on me, or your health holds up, etc., etc., long enough to pass the baton and teach the younger people that are coming on. But if I think if the Democrats during this time, they can't be sitting back on their laurels. This, and they should take this opportunity to be strategizing, already have somebody out there searching for new people and new things, etc., etc. If they aren't doing that now, they're sabotaging themselves in regards to keeping and staying in power and gaining more power. And so it's it's constantly moving. You may only see the surface of it, the people, but underneath the water, people are swimming, their feet are moving and stuff, things
They're
like
like
that.
ducks, right?
Politics, yeah, politics never stay, remain steady. You don't see it, but here again, people that are in the know and know how it works, there's always the power behind the power, and hey, you better, I mean, Democrats, you you better be out there already.
Uh,
I
Brother Williams, I want
definitely think that there should be some scouting going on. It definitely has to be scouting the same way they scout for sports and everything
Yeah,
else. They need to scout for every other
yeah.
mainstream industry.
Mhm.
well, this is something now. This is something that my generation used to do. You would be groomed to take over that spot. The next
Mm,
person, you would have uh, a protege
mm,
that you would bring along, and he would usually have the same values, the same concepts as his teacher. So another thing that we're kind of getting away from, and as uh, Brother Williams, I wanted you to kind of address uh, the idea that uh, of change in 2023 and 2024 in order for us to get us in that right mentality to seem to accept the new and the new norm rather than resort to, as I said, going back to uh, another Joe and Carmela, or putting up faces that we're not familiar with. How do we get our message across as a community? Because it seems, as everyone is pointing out, we're more divided than ever.
Well, I think one of the things, and this is something we're looking into this year, is actually, I think what one of the things that's not happening enough, and Dr. Case, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this happening in Atlanta, but I don't know of forums taking place to just actually where we are actually educating the population on how the political process works and how to be involved and how to engage in it. And I think to me, this kind of just goes back to a page taken out of the 1960s on how the Black Panther Party was actually founded from the stance of actually, hey, politicizing and teaching the population on what is necessary and what needs to be done to put somebody in office and to hold them accountable in office and to make concrete change within your community. And I don't think that we're having enough political educational forums that the people can actually attend, whether it be virtual or in person, that people can attend and learn about the actual process as opposed to just simply having candidate forums to where such and such is going to speak and tell you why you should vote for them, or I'm looking to run, and here I need you to support me for my campaign. So it's like most of the political education has been centered around individuals and helping to boost and get them into office, as opposed to the general population. And I'm speaking about our black people learning about the actual process, as well as one of the things I think I mentioned, obviously late last year on our program, was that we need the elder politicians to have the mentality to bring some younger politicians up under their wing and see to it that we have a process in place to where we are raising and helping to usher in that next generation, instead of feeling like they're competing against the elders feeling like the younger are competing against them, and then how that mentality where I'm going to withhold knowledge, information, expertise, so that you fall flat on your face as long as I'm in office. So that in hell, I had to learn the hard way, so you have to learn the hard way. That crabs in the barrel mentality that we carry, like you see on typical job scenarios, to where hell, you can go on a job with another black person, a new black person get hired, and they try to ask another person that's already been there for years a little bit about the ropes, and they find they intimidated by that person, simply because they feel like eventually they're going to end up taking a job. And then when you look at the politics just from that the job place, and I don't mean to get on a tangent, to where this younger person probably then started off making the same amount it took you years to get to, simply because of where we are with the economics right now. And so they come in with you already looking at them as your enemy, simply because you see them as your direct competition. And it's unfortunate that we're in a place to where, because there's so few of us involved, that basically when one of us make it to a certain position, we damn near the token. And by being a token, and by me looking at myself as a token, that means when the second one comes up, that must be a replacement for my token ass. And long as we have that mentality, then we're not going to make any headway in the process. So I think there just needs to be more education and more direct ways for us to promote the involvement of our people.
So, Dr. Casey,
Definitely outside of election time, because
Yeah,
it does not
exactly.
happen outside of election. And sometimes being a token definitely does make you a target. Also, so it's definitely one of those things where um we definitely, it's not just educational, it is more so being interactive so people can gain interest, because
Yeah.
unless a person has a reason to be interested, you can't educate people that have no interest in the
Right.
education. So
Right.
and it's not just, again, like you said, it's not just about voting, it's about getting out when nobody is thinking about voting, and just being a voice in a community that pushes the narrative of what politics is, and how we can take advantage of putting people in place, because there are very intelligent kids out here that would be great to be in mentorship programs with politicians and things like that, so that we can at least get their minds churning in that direction. Now, I know my son just told me that they was learning about the different structures of courts and all of that. So they are learning a little bit in school, but they need those interactive moments firsthand outside of the school setting, so that they can really pick up on what it takes to be a politician.
Ms. Sims, I'm going to give you the honor tonight of giving your final thoughts. But before you give your final thoughts, is there any progress being made in the area of the George Floyd memorial, or whatever? And what about the education, the educational things that are happening I believe it's the Twin Cities. Your sister city is, what is it? The St. Paul.
St.
Uh,
Paul. Mhm.
and you, the is there still the sharp contrast between the two cities, and as far as uh, the election of your two mayors and the actions that they've had with the community?
Well, I haven't been able, and I haven't for the last, I know, at least 2 months tapped into that. I've kind of had to step back for various reasons, health reasons, and other things coming up. So I'm not really up onto the most current things. The last few days, I've been going back and looking at videos from a lot of the things from the city council, and looking at videos, et cetera, of meetings and stuff to get caught up. So I'm not really kept up with that. So Mr. Scott would be the one I think that could answer those questions, but I'm trying to get caught up. My words for tonight is in part of what all we've talked about, and Robert just touched on in terms of what I earlier was mentioning about going back and doing a politics 101. One of the things I think that we need to, not only our generation, but people like that know what's going on, like Dr. Kaser and Robert, is to let people, don't allow people to get in that negative self-fulfilling prophecies type things. Let them know that there are positive things going on in their community. There are positive people doing positive things. That if you got money, if you have money in the game, you have a say so in the game, whether you realize it or not, in regards to speaking up and questioning things that's going on. If we don't individually do some changing things, then we're contributing to our demise that's coming down the road, as Robert has said, and we all have talked about. So that's my parting words. Get out there, and even if you have to remind yourself of the positive things, things people are doing, maybe even people individually, get them to think about what they may be doing that's positive, that they just automatically do and hadn't even thought of how it might be contributing to the health and what the healthy health of their community. And one of the things I think that needs to go along with the uh, politicians 101, to also start teaching and bringing up or finding people that can relate the economics of a community, how that works, and in terms of us economically supporting each other. I'll just say this and I'm gone. One of the things that has happened within the last year, black banks, two black banks have opened, one in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul, and that's historical. I plan to follow up and talk to a couple of people that I know that's involved in it, but I don't think people are even aware of that, and go to talk to people within the banks themselves. One of the things that I do at times is meet with people from the Federal Reserve. And I know that if banks are in your community, they are required, it's called the community, that banks that's in your community, part of the standards that they are evaluated on is how they are contributing to the community, that puts money in their banks, things like that. So that's part of the 101 stuff for me.
I wonder how Bank of America and Commercial Bank and Wells Fargo, and I'm just wondering, when I look at their track record, how close that scrutiny is. But we addressed that on one of the episodes of Our Black Voices. So hopefully Mr. Scott could get back on the show, and we can talk about that, because I remember when that first proposal came for a black bank in Minneapolis.
I'll just say this: one of the things that if you go in, if anybody goes into a bank in their neighborhood, asked to see this, I think it's CRA, asked to see that report, which is done annually. That bank has to provide that to them so they can see what the bank has done and is doing. So that's one of the things a lot of people don't know and realize. I'm sorry. Continue.
Uh, Dr. Casey, your final thoughts for the evening.
My final thoughts would just be educate yourself, understand the world around you, and do what you can to make the world a better place. At this point in 2023, we've already seen some very interesting things. And the best thing that we can do to prepare for the rest of the year and to propel our life in a better direction is just really to being accountable and responsible for the environments we place ourselves in, the decisions that we make, and really take life by storm. Don't allow it to take you.
Uh, Brother Williams, I'm going to give you the final word here tonight, but a couple quick thoughts. I when I was talking about the money that possibly being from cut from the military budget or given to the Ukraine, I usually talk about the involvement of sports within the community. But then I started thinking, like there are a lot of other things that we could also use within our community. Like you said, we have uh, some school buildings that aren't being used. There's a lot of properties that have been abandoned, and there are other things that our people can actually get involved with. And one of the things that got me thinking about this was an article where there's a trial where they're automating McDonald's. That means there's no people involved. All you, anything that you want, you go in, you tell it to a machine, they put it in. There's no hands-on technology involved whatsoever. So even manual labor, just like we used to talk about it in our day, Miss Sims, those what we used to call startup jobs in the community
Mm-hmm.
are starting to get automated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, unless you have the education to be able to take on the education of being able to fix one of those machines, and the days of the shade tree mechanic are over with. So
Mm-hmm.
there, you have to get involved. You have to be able to read. You have to be able to interpret. The days of just being able to follow step by step uh, are practically over with.
I
So,
agree. I agree. You're contributing to your own demise if you don't do
as Miss Simpson always says, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So, with that, Brother Williams,
it.
give us our final thoughts to take us home.
Well, one thing I want to say about that one is, to me, that just kind of reminds me of the direction that Elon Musk is attempting to push with the economy, and talking about creating a uh, a system to where basically everyone will be given a certain amount of money, because the plan is to create an automated society, and so therefore there won't be jobs for the 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 unskilled laborers starting off. And so we also, and I got to say this, we got to think about the fact that somebody like him, I don't see him running in 2024, but I say another 4 years down the line, it would not surprise me if Elon Musk is on the ballot.
I agree. I
So
agree.
I think everyone should start taking note of
Mhm.
just how he's doing and positioning himself in world power. Um, and what I want to do is just kind of close on one of the things you quoted in the email in regards to our New Year's wishes for the community. And Dr. Casey kind of said it already, but I want to say it my way is that more of our people take ownership and being accountable for the status and direction of the Black community in regards to collective self-determination, and that we realize that our inaction in the process is very dangerous, and that we set ourselves up for everything that we get if we are inactive and not involved in our our position of the community and the stake of the community, then in essence we get what we deserve. And I hate to say that, but that's what else is there. If you're not involved and you don't give a damn, you can't turn around and complain after the fact. You can't, and so we have to be involved in the political process all the way around, not just simply going to the polls.
Right.
Well, hey, I want to thank everybody
So
for their
wait,
time. Go
wait
ahead, Dr.
before we
Casey.
get out of here, because next week we should talk about life after automation, because
Ooh.
I have been seeing a lot about that with McDonald's and the other things that are is happening. So and I really want to talk about that because I think that we're in a place where people are going to have to figure out who they really are, um, and they're not going to be able to hang on just working for the rest of their lives. And this is going to be, I think, a pivotal point. It's not going to start out necessarily good, but it will be good in the long term as far as people being human again and instead of worker bees.
Oh, okay. Would you like to collaborate on some of the questions for next week, or do you have some already prepared for us?
I'll email you.
Okay, sounds
And
good.
adding on to
I look
that,
forward to that one.
what you all are speaking about, um, the McDonald's thing is whether I don't know whether it's in your area, but that's kind of already happening in a sense that at the grocery stores they want you to check, and they have set up machines for you to check out your own
Oh,
food and stuff. I hate that, and
hey,
that's
yeah,
very simple.
evidently, Brother Williams, she hasn't been to a CVS. They'll chase you out the door if you miss an item. Hey, hold on, wait a minute. You
the
got a receipt?
the cashiers are now becoming what they call ambassadors.
Ah,
Okay, that's the position they're giving them. And
mm.
so I can add to that conversation, Dr. Casey. So I look forward to that one.
Okay.
All right. Hey, anytime anyone on the panel wants to discuss something, feel free. That's what we're here for. I mean, so, and hey, trust me, sometimes I get a headache trying to find things for y'all to talk about. So, I'm glad to have some help. Yeah. Thank you
You
so
got to
much,
communicate that.
Dr.
Yes, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
oh, hey, well, okay.
Good night.
I got you
2023,
now, though.
I'll be more of a communicator in 2023 also. How's that? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I'll do my best. Have a great night, everyone. Enjoy
Peace,
the
See ya.
conversation.
wisdom, good judgment in all things. Good night.
Uh, all right. Great show tonight. I enjoyed all the guests, enjoyed the conversations, and I'm looking forward to next week for our conversation on the automation.
Me
So
too.
have a great night, everyone.
All
We'll
right.
see you
Good
next
night.
week.